in Iowa, we can't sell flower. So we make rosin because it's, in our opinion, the next best thing to actual flower, maybe better. So the crazy thing we do in Iowa is we take, a coal the size of your forearm and just throw it into an ice, chop it up and throw it in an ice bath. But we make the best rosin, I would argue, maybe in the world, because nobody else in their right mind would do that.
Hey yo, we put free money where the mic is. He got it on lock like Rikers. Green rebates get you paid, so a lot of people like us. Money Talks Podcast, watch it on all your devices. Woo!
Welcome back to the Money Talks Podcast. I am here with Aaron from Minnesota Cannabis Services. How you feeling? Day one of Lucky Leaf 2026. What are the vibes like?
The vibe, I think there's a lot of pent-up energy. There's a lot of, anxiety in the industry right now because, we're getting off the ground. It's a slow start. Supply's not where it needs to be for the retailers that are getting out there, So I think there's a lot of energy. People are really excited. Cautiously optimistic, but yeah.
Perfect way to describe the environment, like the atmosphere in Minnesota is cautiously optimistic. You can't be delusionally optimistic.
That's right. I think we've seen enough states come online. I think any of the players, even if they're new in Minnesota, have seen this enough times around to be cautiously optimistic about things. Yeah.
Totally. And before we get into your expertise today, I want to know, you obviously are super passionate about cannabis. Where does that passion stem from?
Oh man, for me, I have passion for both the plant of cannabis and as a user of cannabis. I'm a daily user. It's something that supports me and my mental health and things like that. But ultimately, what I'm more passionate about the industry. I came from a background in tech and decided to pivot into the cannabis industry. Because when do you have an opportunity that's like a .com style boom where it's brick and mortar, it's every part of the industry, it's manufacturing, logistics, agriculture, retail, technology, everything's brand new, there's no major players, everything is there for the taking. So being a part of that, being able to be in an industry, being an entrepreneur, it's like an entrepreneur's dream to be in a brand, not only in a startup, but in a startup industry, So that for me is what really drives me every day.
Awesome. So when you first got into the industry and said, I'm going to work in cannabis professionally, what was the reaction from maybe your family, friends, people who knew you? Yeah. Were they like, yeah, that checks out, or were they surprised?
I mean, I think for a lot of folks weren't totally surprised. It wasn't totally out of left field, but it was definitely a pivot, So everybody's like, all right, we'll see what happens, But I've had tremendous success, and it's gone really great. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else for the past 10 years that would have allowed more personal and professional growth for myself. You just are exposed to brand new things all the time. You're solving novel problems every single day in this industry, and they apply to every other industry in life, or they apply to business generally. And so there's no harder business, in my opinion, than cannabis. You're working in an industry that it feels like the entire world is just against you all the time, and everything you try to do is hard. You're like, let's just go get some real estate. Oh, there's a million roadblocks. Let's get insurance. Oh, there's 3 providers. Let's, work with. It's just everything is a challenge, and so it just feels like you're literally industry non grata everywhere. You know what I mean? And so powering through that and pushing through that with limited resources is the hardest part of the industry, but it also drives me, and it drives, I think, everybody that works in the industry can understand it.
Totally. Your first couple years in the industry, what were the biggest problems or the biggest challenges that you had to overcome?
I got in 2017, so fortunately for me, banking largely was solved, at least at deposit banking. But we were still getting picked up, we were still figuring out armored car services and stuff, so there was still a huge risk in just having cash on hand all the time, half of which is not your money. It's excise and sales tax in Washington, So big challenges that way. And then just really there was 3 law firms that would work with you. Now there's, there's a whole bunch of them, right? But just trying to find your way through, not paying the cannabis tax, and not getting fleeced by, different consultants or accounting firms or whoever may come along. You're just desperate for help, and there's people, it's really challenging in the industry for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So what was your, from maybe your first 5 years in cannabis, what was your main area of expertise?
For us, for me, it was just retail operations, a little bit technology, but for the most part, how can we just how can we normalize the retail experience in cannabis? We never wanted to have dispensaries where you had, a security desk, a check-in window, a waiting room, or anything like that. We wanted it to be, as close to maybe like a liquor store or, any your average retail experience as possible. Have the best possible customer service. So it's about how can we build, a retail environment like that, and then build systems, where you're dealing with, $50,000 in cash every day. You have to have really refined SOPs for your staff on how they're handling cash, how all of your controls are in place, so that you can be scalable. So the first 5 years, it was really about how can we make sure that we can go to the second, third, fourth dispensary, and then how can we turn that into 10, 20, 30, in the future. That's still a problem that we work on every single day. So I think iterative change in cannabis companies is critical. So having great change management processes within your organization is critical to success. Yeah. We learned that really early on, that people get really upset when you just change things constantly. So you have to get really good at change, because you can't not change. So you got to get really good as an organization at change and build that into the DNA of your culture as a company, so that you're able to stay agile and pivot and make the moves and not have everybody go, oh my God, another change. You know what I mean?
Right. So, when you walk into a dispensary today, what are some things you see that make you want to pull your hair out?
Oh man, I see this a lot where the dispensary oftentimes don't even contemplate the ability to do the volume that they would like to do. So a lot of dispensaries, you walk in, the layout, the ergonomics of the store, the accessibility of products, the menus experience. Man, if I come into a dispensary and I see a stack of stapled together paper menus, I just want to pull my hair out. I'm like, guys, there's a solution for this. We use big digital menus that are controllable and things like that. So how are you going to get, 1,000 people, we do high volume dispensaries. How are you going to get 1,000 people through the door today, service all of them in a timely manner, offer all of them well over 1,000 SKUs of selection? Those are the things that I think you have to be prepared for and think about. Many dispensaries would love to do those numbers, but you walk in and you're like, how would that actually happen? If there's a line out the door right now, how would you even service 1,000 people in here? So I think that those are some of the bigger challenges that I see along the way.
And what's the main thing a customer wants when they walk into a dispensary?
Honestly, they want an experience of service. You have your 20% of your customers that are really expert cannabis consumers, and they come in and know exactly what they want. They've browsed your menu online. They're excited for the new drop that you just brought in. But 80% of the people that are coming in there, we have 1,000 to 2,000 SKUs on the menu at any time. We have digital menus to help people browse. We have all kinds of different ways. We have kiosks. We have every way for you to look at product. But at the end of the day, after we do all this work, it's still the same conversation. What are you smoking? Whether our age demographic skews a little bit older than people think in this industry. Like on the people that on the inside of retail understand this a little bit better. But people in their mid 30s and 40s are a bulk of that 80% of cannabis consumers a lot of times. So they're coming in and they're just like, I'm not trying to navigate all of these products or these drops or whatever. Like, man, what are you smoking? It's still a really personal touch to the bud tending experience that people want to see. So they want to be educated, they want to be guided through the menu process, they want to be shown new products, but not totally overwhelmed. So I think that's the personal touch and the customer service in cannabis is still absolutely king.
Totally. The most underrated figures in the industry are bud tenders. I will die on that hill there.
I agree with that, yeah. No, it is really critical. And how can we as operators provide incentives and structures, for them to be successful? How can we put the data at their fingertips to help them make the best decisions and help them guide our customers? How do you build a menu workflow that allows, and training that allows for a really comprehensive and consistent experience every single time with your retail associate or your bud tender? It's critical.
Hell yeah. So tell me about what you're doing in Iowa. You live in Iowa City, and off camera we discussed your facility, which is super interesting. Yeah. So what's like a day in the life? Because I know you work with Minnesota Cannabis Services, but you live in Iowa City. So tell me about what you're doing at that facility, like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, the facility in Iowa City is incredible. It's absolutely state-of-the-art. Hydroponic fertigation system. We use PIP 2-tier rolling benches. We have one of the best cultivators in the nation, in Dustin McCormick. It's a real. We use GrowLink, for our automated fertigation systems and our climate controls. So that is an amazing machine. right? And it's very hard to drive. And we're really fortunate to have an incredible staff, an incredible director in Dustin to be able to execute on that system for us. And we're producing truly, unprecedented results at times. And so that's really exciting. In Iowa, we can't sell flower. So we make rosin because it's, in our opinion, the next best thing to actual flower, maybe better. So the crazy thing we do in Iowa is we take, a coal the size of your forearm and just throw it into chop it up and throw it in an ice bath. But we make the best rosin, I would argue, maybe in the world, because nobody else in their right mind would do that. So it's a unique thing about the Iowa market is like nobody even knows it's legal there, but you might find the best rosin you've ever had in your life there.
Right. So you can't buy flower, but you could buy rosin. And do a lot of people consume rosin? Is that like?
Yeah, so crazy thing in Iowa is that we're one of only 2 cultivation manufacturers. There's 7 total licenses in Iowa. There's 5 dispensaries and 2 cultivation manufacturing licenses. We have one of those cultivation manufacturing licenses and 3 of the 5 dispensaries. So chances are if you come to Iowa and you buy cannabis, you're going to buy Iowa Cannabis Company rosin. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. So how did you get involved with Minnesota Cannabis Services?
Yeah, so, same organization that I've been with for a long time. Tate and Christy Capel started Cannabis in Glass out in Spokane, Washington, expanded to Oregon, started Iowa Cannabis Company back in 2018. Just got licensed in Florida, and now have pivoted our attention to Minnesota. Tate and I are from Iowa originally, so having roots in the Midwest, taking advantage of an opportunity to expand and take the 10 years of experience we've had as a company and bring it into a new state here in the Midwest is really meaningful to us. Tate has deep roots in the state of Minnesota as well. So for us, it was a no-brainer for us to jump into the industry and work through it. So we started Minnesota Cannabis Services because we saw a different opportunity in this state where you have a large amount of social equity applicants and licensees. The majority of the industry right now is being made up by micro licenses. So the need was enormous for management services, assistance. So we do everything from like full business process outsourcing basically and managed services for folks. But that allows a lot of folks that had a license, had an opportunity, didn't have the capital, didn't have the means otherwise to get operational, didn't want to take the risk because they didn't have the operational expertise. So we step in those situations, and we have a lot of clients now. So we have a great network in the state at really every licensing type and level across transport, cultivation, manufacturing, retail, everything. So it's been a really incredible project. We've basically started that organization and this effort here over the past 2 years, and built a great office of folks right here, in Minnesota, down in Edina, and it's been an incredible journey. And so we just started and are here at the trade show today to talk about our Blue Ox cultivation campus that we're working on. So many of these micro licenses, they have a cultivation endorsement that so many of them are not able to use, right? Cultivation is an enormously insurmountable task to so many people. The capital requirements, are in the mid 6 figures at least just to get going. Even in, even in 5,000 square feet of canopy, you easily spend $1 million, if you're trying to do anything indoors. And then you have the half-acre outdoor opportunity, right? And so that is, to us, over the course of the next of this summer, an opportunity to try to maybe bail out the supply side of this industry a little bit by getting a large cultivation campus going where micro licenses are able to join our project where we manage the entire cultivation facility. They benefit from all of our expertise of everything that we've learned in cannabis and our entire excellent team of cultivators to be able to come in and make the investment. It's a $150,000 investment, and then a monthly fee of about $3,750, and then we just do everything. And so at the end of that, we work with you. You're able to be as involved as you want or not, but we kind of make sure that we backstop the entire thing and underwrite the execution of it. And then at the end of it, your 150K buys you raw biomass, right? And we're targeting about 7,500 pounds or so, we believe, in raw biomass that we'll be able to help folks out with. So, the opportunity is pretty tremendous. Everyone knows, especially right now, early on in the industry, with prices that are so high, if you have supply in the market, whether it's just to, if it's outdoor and it's not good enough for flower and it's just a soil to oil situation, that's still going to be invaluable to a micro operator to have their own harvest that they're able to do splits on with an extraction team or work with an extraction company on a deal themselves and get their own products in their own store and take control of their supply chain. Right now it's just a really desperate position. If you got a lease, and you're trying to, maybe you've even hired some employees and you're ready to go and you've realized, where am I going to get this cannabis from? Or the stuff that's on the market is $3,700 a pound, and I can't even sell. There's not a customer at $70 to $80 an eighth in Minneapolis and in Minnesota. That the black market's better than that, right? Cannabis is decriminalized and legal here. There's lots of cannabis available through non-regulated channels. So, $70, $80 an eighth is not a price point people will pay, right? So we got to get the price down. We got to get through that. And these guys got to pay their bills and their rent and pay off these investments they've made. The industry's already been, significantly delayed. So we hope to, with the Blue Ox Cultivation Park to get a bunch of micros out to work with us. We've also got micro licenses that, if people want to make the investment and don't currently have a license, we can work with them on that to allow them to participate as a true party of interest and be able to reap the benefit of that investment. So, we hope it's successful and we hope we have a lot of interest in it, but we're really excited about it. We've got quite a few subscribers already, and so, we're excited.
Congrats, man. And when you talk to, new growers, new cultivators, micro licensees in Minnesota, what's like a common mistake you see the novice people make, or like something that, like an area where they have to learn things the hard way?
Yeah, cultivation is full of opportunities to learn things the hard way, I would say. Cultivation is always 2 or 3 times more expensive than you think it's going to be. So coming in and trying to do it on your own without a lot of expertise, if it's the first time you've cultivated, if it's the first time you've done it at scale, I think that's one of the bigger challenges we see. A lot of folks have cultivated cannabis, in their home, in their tent, in their yard, and then you look at doing it like, all right, well, let's do a couple thousand plants, and because really that's the economy of scale you're going to have to hit to be a successful operator. So the challenges that start to arise do not rise on a linear basis with cannabis. When you get to certain, canopy sizes and plant numbers, the complexity of the operation becomes orders of magnitude more difficult, where, you just don't think about, I'm gonna have to harvest this all at one time. That's gonna take 60 people, and you're like, I'm 2 people right now. So there's just a lot of challenges like that people run into. And so, making sure that you're staging out your cycles, do the best that you can. At the end of the day, pay to work with somebody, whether it's a partner that you brought in or a consultant that you brought in that knows what they're doing. And I know consultants in this industry are a little bit of a crapshoot. So, find a good one and find a trusted partner. But you're trying to do this on your own for the first time, even if you have experience cultivating cannabis personally, it's really, really challenging, to do it at scale.
Totally. And an area I feel for growers is like they're probably, when they say like, look, this is the capital I have, I want to grow at scale, they probably have so many people constantly bombarding them like, hey, work with us, give us your business, give me your business. So how overwhelming is that? And like, what advice would you give to a cultivator who doesn't know who to trust?
It's incredibly challenging. I mean, when we started cultivating for the first time, we had the same challenges. We paid the cannabis tax. We worked with some great folks and some really poor, really bad folks. To get us stood up. We learned a lot, and so I think the safest way to get to a position where you know what you're doing is lose a lot of money and learn those expensive lessons. But if you can find a group that can admit to those challenges and has been through it themselves and is willing to partner with you, and that's something that I think is a real advantage at Minnesota Cannabis Services. Is like, we were operators until we started Minnesota Cannabis Services. We're still operators today, and we'll still be operators forever. But we realize that our systems, our processes, our 10 years of industry knowledge are something that is a pretty hot commodity right now. And I think we have a really, really strong reputation. Folks know that we do what we say, and we show up where we're supposed to, and we don't overpromise and underdeliver. And so I think that's a big opportunity in the industry where there's just not a lot of trust in general. There's a lot of people showing up that they're new, they're selling, the next best thing, or they're selling, that they're the best, they're going to create the best cannabis for you in the world. And, the reality is a lot of folks are in over their head, even as a consultant. in a lot of these scenarios. So it's really challenging for sure. Yeah.
And what are some key factors that are going to aid in Minnesota's success as a cannabis market?
Oh man, that's a great question. We need regulatory changes for sure. Testing bottleneck in the state is going to be catastrophic very soon. It's already becoming catastrophic. It's going to be a catastrophic problem by the end of this year. I think it's going to put everybody, including the OCM and the legislature, in a really difficult position. The tax revenue that's forecasted is just not going to show up, which also means the operators' revenue is not going to be there to pay off these capital investments that they've made. So we really got to we need the legislature to do some work and help on the regulatory side, be as flexible as possible while this industry stands up. And we need operators to show up and go. You know what I mean? We need this market needs capital substantially. We've been able to reach into our networks and be a provider of capital in a lot of ways and make a lot of investments in the state. We've been very fortunate to be able to do that based on our reputation, our assets and things like that we've been able to leverage. But capital in cannabis is incredibly difficult. It's a problem that very few people have a solution to. There's only a handful of debt providers that are out there. I think with rescheduling, we're hopefully going to see a big resurgence of hopefully a 2018, 2019 style reinvestment, in the space, maybe a little bit smarter money this time. So I hope that we see that, and I hope that people start to see Minnesota as a more investable opportunity. And I think as the supply starts to show up, as people start to demonstrate, hey, there are players here, there is going to be a foundation to this industry on the supply side and the logistics side, the retail is going to be there. I mean, we're in Minnesota. This is like the retail chain capital of the world, right?
Target is.
Yeah, Best Buy. There's Dick's Sporting Goods. I mean, the list. Look it up sometime. The list of successful chains of retailers and businesses that have come out of Minneapolis is absolutely insane.
That's crazy.
So the way that this industry has those shoulders to stand on from just a retail operation standpoint, the hiring pool here is incredibly good for those reasons on the retail side. So it's an industry that I think is going to show a ton of promise, that as it starts to get its legs, money will arrive and we'll start to see things really get off the ground. But at this point, no amount of money is going to change the testing bottleneck that we're facing right now, right? Some of these challenges, we're going to need to see some legislative and regulatory changes, but that's the case with every new industry. I think the OCM and the legislature in Minnesota did a fantastic job of standing up there, a unique industry that reflects the values of Minnesotans, and I think that's super important. And every industry starts out and has to be adjusted. There's omnibus cannabis bills in the first couple of years of every major state to make those adjustments and get it right. So we fully expect it to happen, and we are more excited and more bullish on Minnesota than ever.
Yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with me. I learned these when I talk to people like you, it's overwhelming the amount of knowledge that you have. Like, I need to go home and sit and unpack all the gems you dropped. So for someone who's watching this, maybe a micro licensee, a grower, someone who wants to grow, where could they find you and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us online, Minnesota Cannabis Services, MNCanna.com. Is where you'll find Minnesota Cannabis Services. If you're interested in the Blue Ox Grow campus, check us out online at blueoxgrow.com. We're also down here today at Lucky Leaf. We'll be here throughout the trade show here. We have our Minnesota Cannabis Services booth actually right next to the podcast booth here. So you come on down, say hello. All of our experts are here. All of our cultivators are here. Come and chat with us about anything. If you're interested in transport, any retail assistance, whatever, the Blue Ox project, come down and talk to us. We'd love to have you.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
man.
absolutely.
It was really great chatting with you.
Yeah, you
Seriously.
too, man. Thanks.